What a month for indie games, with one particular title that sucked up all my time, but we have beat 'em ups, ARPGs, and actually not that many roguelites, so let's begin with Fading Serenades, a gentle courier adventure where you arrive on a remote island, helping its few remaining inhabitants by hiking, jumping, climbing, and negotiating tricky terrain in order to deliver their packages. You have a limited amount of inventory space, and the heavier your backpack, the more difficult it is to traverse. So yes, pretty much indie Death Stranding, having an awesome pixel art look and is a real hidden gem. Speaking of hidden gems, Pale Coins is an open world action RPG taking inspiration from old school fantasy RPGs set in the expansive realm of Grandmark, in which you are free to explore. Start from humble beginnings and slowly grow in power, exploring forested areas, ruins, caverns, and mountains while fighting monsters, delving into dungeons, and completing various quest lines. It has intense real-time combat along with a loot system, skills, magic, and the whole 9 yards, having a simple but effective pixel art look and is going under the radar. This video is brought to you by LORT, a chaotic action roguelite where absurdity is the point as 1 to 8 players battle across a cursed fantasy world. You fight your way through procedurally generated lands filled with enemies, swapping between melee weapons, spells, and ranged weapons, including guns, mixing it up even more in co-op to create explosive combos that fill up the entire screen. You do get power-ups during a run, where stacking these might just result in exponential increases in power, allowing you to create game-breaking builds, which is part of the fun. Co-op makes it even more chaotic with a revive mechanic to get your homies back up and fighting again, as is blowing the tutor to rally the squad. But don't worry, gold pickups are shared and each player gets their own wallet to splurge on whichever upgrades they want. If it wasn't obvious from the vibe of the game, this is going in the humorous direction with a cartoony art style, exaggerated fantasy flair, and meme-fueled humor with funny visual gags as you get cheddared and ascend into full God Slapper mode. If interested, you can try their free demo on Steam and wishlist the game via the link in the description, then look forward to the release in Q4 2025. The long-in-development Spindle also made it to release and is an old-school 2D Zelda-style action-adventure title where you play as Death in a world where nobody can die anymore. Wield your scythe with your loyal pig companion by your side as you explore handcrafted environments, solve puzzles, and fight enemies, attempting to figure out the mystery. It's primarily melee combat, nothing too involved like a Souls-like title or anything of the sort, but it's functional, mixed in with simple puzzles in the dungeons which you need to figure out. The pixel art and animations are pretty good as well, with a surprisingly heartwarming story that is ultimately about killing people, but it's for the greater good, and is an awesome, smaller title worth supporting if you want to see more games like this. Silly Poly Beast released near the end of the month and is on trend to do pretty well for itself, being a story-driven action shooter with horror undertones where you play as Polly, a teenage girl who escapes a nightmarish orphanage only to find herself trapped in an underworld covered in fog and swarming with demons. This has some very clever use of camera angles, having side-scrolling, isometric, and behind-the-back perspectives depending on the segment of the game, switching seamlessly between them for dramatic effect as you wield a revolver, skateboard, and forbidden magic to fight your way through. As you attempt your escape, you will gain various upgrades through ancient knowledge, gaining powerful spells and abilities. For the most part, it's an isometric shooter, but the horror vibes are very well done, resembling a survival horror game, having sick art direction, and could be one of the best games of the year. Yes, Decktamer is a roguelite deck builder, but one which is refreshingly not a Slay the Spire or Balatro clone, instead more resembling Magic the Gathering with a monster taming twist. Lead a party of creatures through the depths of the abyss, picking one starter monster and a squad of backup units, then take on successive battles in sequence with the risk of permanently losing your creatures if they get killed. You can weaken an enemy monster, then attempt to capture them using food items to add them to your deck, with the kill or tame decision adding risk-reward tension. Key to your strategy will be mutagens, allowing you to mutate and evolve your creations, transferring abilities over from one monster to another, creating powerful mutant creatures with lethal synergies. The art is absolutely fantastic with some nightmarish creature designs and is one of the appeals of a monster taming game to me, and they have absolutely nailed it here. Alright, something a little more light-hearted is Pocket Boss, a narrative puzzle game that has you playing with charts, but not through something like Excel, but instead interacting with these in interesting ways. There's a narrative and story where you are a remote office worker tasked by your boss to crunch the numbers, massaging them so that they fit with your boss's narrative. Or you could choose to be a little bit more honest and to see what happens. Drag, pinch and pull visualize metrics to make productivity soar, erase losses, boost customer satisfaction, and pretend the numbers always go up, all under that subtle pressure from your boss who messages you with instructions. It's like a cheeky take on bull jobs, and is very clever in how they play with the idea, where this is published by Playables, who also made titles like Kids and Cars, which are in a similar vein. The good old days is going under the radar, which is a shame since there's something to this nostalgic exploration-driven Metroidvania not helped by the surprise release, so I'm doing my part to spread the word. Set in the small town of Arostia during the year 19XX, you play as Sean, a young boy returning home only to find a loan shark waiting at his door, demanding repayment of his missing father's debt before the day ends. This urgent premise drives a strange, heartfelt adventure that mixes light-hearted childhood curiosity with real stakes, as Sean heads underground to find money, and quite randomly, his 3 friends are trapped underground as well, so he can rescue them along the way. The underground world is a sprawling maze of connected areas, secret passages and hidden stashes where you jump, climb and explore for both cash and clues. You can unlock and switch between all 4 playable characters, each with distinct traversal abilities such as smashing walls, sprinting, or a particularly high jump, used to access new areas and to uncover shortcuts Metroidvania style. What makes this stand out is its variety, from optional trial rooms, minigames and side missions, all while you keep an eye on the countdown timer tied to the looming deadline. There are multiple endings and multiple playthroughs are encouraged, since each attempt reveals more about the game in New Game Plus. The pixel art and quirky tone evokes Earthbound, although the structure and feel does remind me more of La Mulana, offering a surprisingly ambitious take on this genre. Tormented Souls 2 marks the chilling return of classic survival horror, bringing back Carolyn Walker from the 2021 original for another descent into madness, this time in the rotting town of Villa Hess. Instead of a single mansion, the sequel expands the setting to a full town filled with interconnected nightmares such as an abandoned shopping mall, a decrepit school, and even a derelict convent, each dripping with dread and atmosphere. The gameplay sticks to its old school roots with fixed camera angles, limited resources and manual saving, but offers modern control options for those who prefer smoother movement over full-on tank controls. Exploration remains the heart of the experience as you'll scour every location for clues, keys and weapons, solving puzzles to unlock shortcuts in new areas while facing off against grotesque twisted creatures using a mix of melee and ranged weapons. The supernatural element takes center stage again, allowing Caroline to shift between realities and even to travel into the past to alter the present. Visually, it's a clear step up from the first game with more detailed environments and lighting, where a couple of horror indie game developers seem to like this, so take that as a stamp of approval. A roguelite symbol builder of interest is Roulette Hero, where you have to assemble a team of animal companions, each with unique abilities and synergies, placing them on a roulette wheel, then spinning it to activate their powers based on the landing spot, in order to take out giant mechanical monsters. Success depends not only on the animals that you pick, but where you place them, since their positioning relative to the other animals affects synergies and their power level, being a system that requires both foresight and luck. Unlock new animals from 13 species, with over 100 of these creatures, along with over 90 power-up cartridges, which results in a large amount of possible combinations and strategies. It has an amazing cartoony art style with vibrant visuals, where the luck of the spin adds that unpredictability that keeps things interesting. October is spooky month, which usually means a larger than usual number of horror games, one of which is CARIMARA Beneath the Forlorn Limbs, a short atmospheric adventure where you step into the shoes of the CARIMARA, a small, mute creature born of moss and mirror light, wandering through a house stitched together from grief and riddles. You don't speak, but instead ask using magical cards to convey questions, investigate objects, interact with the other characters, and gradually uncover more of the story. The developer warns against asking too many questions, lest you awaken something that knows your name, so of course you have to do it, and it's an adventure game by another name since you are exploring in first person to find these cards to then ask you questions, solving puzzles to progress the story. It's on the shorter end of things, lasting about 2 hours, with an amazing visual style that makes it stand out, and sometimes that's good enough. The original Escape Simulator is a big hit, which means that its sequel has big shoes to fill, and for the most part it has, being a much more visually prettier version of the first game with more detailed environments. You explore intricately detailed rooms in first person, either solo or with up to 8 friends in co-op, doing escape room stuff, which translates to puzzle adventure game in video game terms. Pick up objects, examine clues, manipulate props, and unlock hidden mechanics within the rooms in order to solve puzzles and escape. This launched with 3 scenarios in Dracula's Castle, a starship, and the pirate-themed The Cursed Treasure scenario, each offering unique takes on the concept with interesting ideas and mechanics, with more content updates and possibly DLC to come if the first game is any indication. Their goal with this sequel is to be as interactive as stepping into a real-life escape room, so that means physics and being able to sit down anywhere you like, also having an extensive creation tool named Room Editor 2.0, supporting community creations and modding, where apparently there were over 4,000 rooms created for the first game, which is a lot, so this looks to get better over time. The liminal space of the Backrooms is in meme territory at this point, so it's easy to discount games using that setting since cynically it's hopping on the trend, and there are a fair number of Backrooms games on Steam, some of which are pretty bad, but the 1.0 release of Escape the Backrooms is of interest here. This is a first-person co-op horror title where your goal is to escape, but all your teammates must make it out in order for you to be successful. Stay close together to make full use of proximity voice chat, but beware since there are hostile entities lurking about who are able to hear you as well. Search for clues and keys to advance, and stay close together in order not to get lost, but you might randomly no-clip into another area and get temporarily separated from your crew, causing panic and disorientation as you try to get your bearings. The realistic visuals gives it an unsettling vibe, but as with most co-op horror titles, it does devolve into screwing around with your friends with an unintended comedic effect. Speaking of 1.0 releases, the concurrent players chart for The Farmer Was Replaced looks pretty insane, spiking up and staying there after 1.0, and is a curious programming puzzle game which might not look the most impressive but can be very satisfying. You program a drone to automate all aspects of farming, replacing the farmer so to speak, using a Python-like programming language to control everything in the game. You have to expand your farm, harvest crops, and gradually unlock advanced technology, writing code to handle planting, watering, harvesting, and upgrading, then simply pressing execute and watching the drone go to work. Progress up the tech tree to unlock new elements, automating more tasks and optimizing your code to handle increasingly complex scenarios, beginning with simple loops and grid patterns and culminating in higher order programming logic and automation setups. In contrast with other programming puzzle games, instead of being level based, this is a continuous automation sandbox with built-in progression. If you don't code for a living like me, the game does have tutorials which cleverly introduces concepts to you, and for the seasoned programmer, you should be able to get through the early parts with ease, but the challenges later on could still be interesting, so for anyone curious about programming or wanting to introduce it to your kids, this might be worth a look. Lessaria Fantasy Kingdom Sim taps into a style of strategy game that is rarely explored today, channeling the spirit of the Majesty series where indirect control and economic incentives replace traditional RTS commands. You're shaping a medieval fantasy realm from the ground up, building districts, placing key structures, and managing the flow of gold that fuels your kingdom's growth. Instead of commanding troops directly, you influence heroes and adventurers by setting monetary bounties and rewards, nudging them to explore, hunt monsters, or defend the realm if the price is right. That simple twist changes everything, creating a dynamic world where you attempt to influence the AI. The developers have been clear that this isn't a straight clone, but a true spiritual successor, imagining what a Majesty 3 might have looked like, with twists of their own, such as a more modern combat system using squads of heroes, as well as deeper town simulation aspects. I like the almost Warcraft 3 looking aesthetic, with both a story campaign as well as a sandbox mode so you can play how you like. Misery plunges you into a bleak, low-poly, post-nuclear survival sandbox for 1 to 5 players, where you take on the role of private military contractors sent into the exclusion zone of the fictional Republic of Zaslavi. You begin each session with a frantic 60-second rush to grab whatever you can before heading to the bunker before the bombs fall, then awaken in a procedurally generated wasteland filled with ruined cities, military bases, anomalies, and mutants. This is a survival game, so the core mechanics focus on scavenging for food, gear, and artifacts, repairing and upgrading your base, crafting weapons and equipment, and surviving threats. As you explore the zone, your vision and sanity can warp under stress as you start to see visions, hear whispers, and become paranoid that someone is watching you. Interestingly, while this is not early access, they have announced a roadmap with mod support, bunker expansion, a pet system allowing you to assemble a helicopter, and more coming, already having sold a massive number of copies, with the lead developer being like 19 or something, which is insane to think about. Another 1.0 release of interest is Be Castled, where you lead the Sun Kingdom, tasked with building a thriving settlement by day and defending it from sieges by the moon beasts at night. The game splits naturally into two halves of gathering resources, constructing buildings, managing citizen happiness, and expanding your domain by day, which then switches to defense RTS at night as you use your troops to man the walls, towers, and gates, train archers, swordsmen, and siege weapons, and hold off waves of attackers until dawn. Your villagers act semi-autonomously, meaning that smart placement and efficient layouts have a huge impact on productivity and stability, so you need to plan out the settlements and re-optimize if needed. Each passing night gets tougher with more dangerous enemies, so you need to constantly be strengthening defenses and researching new technologies, ensuring that your economic engine will be able to support this expansion with a good art style as well. Are we there yet? Is a bonafide viral hit, having surpassed 1 million sales in 4 days, and I recently saw that they crossed 2 million copies, which is insane, being a 4-player co-op friend slot title where you and up to 3 friends take charge of a battered RV and have to make your way home. You are forced to take an alternate route through the dangerous Mabats Valley, with the chain-smoking rotund characters being part of the charm. Different players have different responsibilities, so one player drives, while the others repair the vehicle, manage supplies such as burgers, antidotes, and EpiPens, and work together to navigate treacherous terrain using a front and rear winch. There are unpredictable hazards and seemingly impossible obstacles to get through, but through the power of friendship or whatever, you might just be able to squeak by, being a hilarious fun time with friends. I'm very impressed with how developer Scumhead has evolved over the years, with their latest creation being Mortar, a non-linear first-person shooter adventure with a throwback look, having one of the strangest and most surreal environments that I have seen. Play as a member of the Hayward, a special military group formed to investigate and eliminate threats within this weird world known as the Strange, where your character is essentially a reanimated corpse in armor, but is a newer generation model, with your main mission being to investigate an increase in the occurrence of anomalies, with your predecessor Hayward Generation 1 Evlan suspected to be involved somehow. Explore distinct dimensions through a central hub, choosing your path freely as you investigate, fight strange creatures, and unlock new weapons and upgrades. It's first-person shooter combat with melee, with each weapon having multiple functions and upgrade paths, adding variety and giving you options in combat. Take on quests and battle over 20 gigantic bosses, with combat and enemy designs being the highlight, and seems to be one of the dark horse contender for Game of the Year for some people. After 6 years in early access, we also have the 1.0 release of The Seas, a vibrant top-down sandbox open-world survival craft game set in an infinite procedurally generated world. The most direct comparison here would be Core Keeper, but has also been described as top-down Terraria, where you're gathering resources, crafting weapons and armor, defeating bosses, and building out your own settlement. Build houses, recruit settlers with jobs like miner, farmer or guard, and defend your community against raids and monsters. Explore the world across varied biomes and challenging dungeons, uncovering hidden treasures and secrets. Something a little different here is the recruitment of NPC settlers, adding in some colony sim aspects, but the developer does also give you the ability to set up your own server. For, I quote, hundreds of players, with the ability to fine-tune systems and mechanics in the game, switching them on or off as you see fit to customize your experience. This has been blowing up post 1.0, so if you're looking for a Core Keeper-like experience but want something a little different, do pick this up. Another month, another gambling roguelite which blew up, where we are looking at slots and daggers here, blending the thrill of random chance with the strategy of classic dungeon crawling. Set in a pixelated fantasy world, every spin of the reels determines the outcome of your next attack, matching certain symbols to trigger damage, combos or special effects, while multipliers and modifiers add additional layers of consideration. As you defeat enemies, you earn coins which can be spent to buy new symbols, tweak your setup or unlock upgrades that expands the number of reels, giving you more control. Critical hits, buffs and relic style power-ups makes each run feel unique as you gradually learn how to manipulate the odds. I've recently seen some conversation about games having the juice or not, and this game has it, mostly to do with animation and sound design, just feeling satisfying to play and keeps you hooked for just one more spin. Father's Frontier puts you in charge of a fledgling medieval settlement where survival is just as important as expansion. You construct homes, farms, work camp and resource gathering buildings, manage labourers, assign professions and oversee everything from firewood collection to crop rotation. Along the way, you explore, mine for iron and gold, trade with merchants, build defences against raiders and wild animals, and research technologies that unlock advanced buildings while also having to deal with weather and seasons. One wrong move here and your entire settlement could starve, so it's a brutal survival city builder that reminds me of Banished, so if you love that game, be sure to give this a go. Another viral sensation is Escape from Duck-Off, a 3/4 view extraction shooter where you play as a duck in a hostile world, having to loot, shoot and get back to base to keep the spoils. This crossed more than 2 million copies sold and has a very active player base, so if curious, definitely jump in. Battle your way across procedurally generated maps filled with enemies, scavenging for weapons, ammo and loot, with every attempt feeling tense and unpredictable due to the inherent risk of losing what you have. Return to your underground bunker to engage with the crafting systems, using workbenches and an intricate weapon modding station to refine your gear, research blueprints, craft new items and expand your base. You need to balance greed with caution while out in the field, choosing when to flee or to push on, with the whimsical, cutesy design of the characters providing a contrast to the hardcore extraction game. Interestingly, this is single player only, but does have 50 plus hours of content, which is very impressive, providing plenty of value at their price point. Publisher Hooded Horse has done it again. Another strategy game launch, another big success, where Super Fantasy Kingdom is a roguelite defense city builder where you need to build and expand your kingdom while also protecting it from swarms of enemies. Construct buildings like woodcutters, farms, mines and workshops, assigning workers and managing production chains for growth. But beware, since you will come under attack and will need to recruit heroes to deal with the monsters. It is auto battler combat, so you don't have to worry about micro, but your heroes must be strong enough and complement each other if you want to be successful. It is a roguelite, so you are constantly unlocking new stuff even in defeat, from new buildings, heroes and permanent upgrades, so all fairly standard strategy roguelite stuff, but balanced impeccably and has a compelling gameplay loop. The ultra minimalist pixel art looks so good in my opinion, with this being an early access release with a lot more content to come. Speaking of compelling games, Absalom is a fast-paced roguelite beat-em-up that looks sick, set in the fantasy world of Talam, where magic has been outlawed and a tyrant known as the Sun King rules with an iron fist. Brawl your way through beautiful stages, choosing from 4 rebel fighters, each with distinct styles, unleashing attacks, combos, dodges, and powerful arcana attacks against waves of enemies and gigantic bosses. Accumulate permanent upgrades between runs and use rituals mid-run to alter your build, with branching paths for each attempt, providing variation. This is from Guard Crush Games, best known for Streets of Rage 4, so I assumed that the combat would be great, and it is, but they managed to weave in the roguelite elements as well, resulting in one of the best games of the year. Speaking of the best games, a lot of people were talking about Balls in October, with the release of Ball Pit, a Devolver Digital published title from developer Kenny Sun, better known for puzzle games like Yenkai's Triangle, but also Mr. Sun's Hatbox, a roguelite platformer with a Fulton mechanic similar to MGS5, with this latest game having an insanely satisfying gameplay loop. This is a roguelite brick breaker with relatively short runs, where you select from unique characters and dive into the pit, firing balls at enemies and gaining powerful orbs and passive item upgrades. Orbs can evolve or be combined into more powerful forms, having that Vampire Survivors kind of satisfaction as you take out swarms of enemies. Between runs, build out your settlement with a variety of upgrades, having to harvest resources or construct buildings using the same brick-breaking mechanics, with the sheer variety of options and New Game Plus providing hours of content and has sucked up way too many hours of my life. Oh, before you go, once again, do try the demo of our sponsor LORT and wishlist the game via the link in the description below. Watch this video for more of the best indie games.